Okay, who's the Yitro? Yitro, Parshas Yitro. Extremely unbelievable parsha. Of course, in Parshas Yitro, there is Aseret HaDibros, the Ten Commandments. You think it's strange that the parsha that contains the Ten Commandments, which is the parsha where God appears to Am Yisrael, to the world, basically, on Har Sinai, is named after a Gentile? Does that seem to be a little anomaly? Maybe, maybe not, but we shall see. So, Parshas Yitro starts off where Yitro, who is Moshe Rabbeinu's father-in-law, he's hosting Moshe, hears as Kol Asher also Elokim Moshe Yisrael, all that God did for Moses and his people Israel. Rashi brings here that Yisro heard. What did he hear? He heard Milchemes Amalek, the battle against Amalek, and Kriyas Yamsuf. Verse order. He heard Kriyas Yamsuf, the splitting of the sea. He heard about the splitting of the sea, and he heard about the battle with Amalek.
And not about the Makot?
Who did he hear it from?
Oh, he probably heard it from, maybe it was on the internet. He heard it from people, whoever. Everybody was talking about it. If you believe the Midrash, then Kriyas Yamsuf, all this water split. Okay, Milchemes Amalek came and attacked. I'm sure they broadcast their attack, and they were defeated. Which means, what did he not hear? He did not hear Matan Torah. He did not hear about the giving of the Torah. So Rashi is of the opinion that Yisro arrives before Matan Torah, before the great event where Hashem came down, so to speak, on the mountain and gave the Torah, the Seres HaTorah. Okay. There are other Rishonim who learn that he came after Matan Torah. And that he heard about Matan Torah, and then he came to join Israel in the desert. Which would mean an amazing thing. It would mean that when Yisro came, he brought Moshe Rabbeinu's two sons, Gershon and Eliezer. Would mean that Gershon and Eliezer, the sons of Moshe, were not present at Har Sinai. So who is the first father that taught his sons about the event at Sinai and the Torah? Would be Moshe Rabbeinu teaching his two sons, because they weren't there, he would have taught them. Okay. But let's get back to the story. So
Avrum would have been the first father?
Who?
Avrum?
I can't hear you.
Moshe
would have taught his sons because they weren't there.
He was not the first father. The first father would have been Aaron.
No, Moshe Rabbeinu was a father to two sons.
Yes, but the first one who taught to his children was not Moshe, was Aaron.
Why?
Because Moshe...
Aaron's children were there.
Yes.
But why would Aaron have to teach his children? They heard it themselves.
Basan, Yeshua.
Well, you want to go down the drain? Okay, go down. But Moshe Rabbeinu's right there on the spot teaching his children. So now, that's just a curiosity. So according to Rashi, Yisro comes before Matan Torah. What does that mean before Matan Torah? He comes at the beginning of Sivan, on the 6th or 7th day the Torah was given, and so he comes before Shavuos. He comes before, on Sivan, before the Torah is given. Okay? Now it says here in this parsha, a couple sentences later, Vayhi mocharas. It was the next day. Vayeshev Moshe l'shpotes ha'am. Moses sat down to judge the people. And they stood by Moshe from the morning until the evening. And Yisro sees that they are standing from early in the morning till, evening. And he says, it's not good what you're doing, Moshe. Novel tivol gamata gama'am. You'll get tired. The people will get tired. You need to learn how to delegate. I needed to.
He said, Maharat of what?
Off. So we'll see. One second. I'm just going to say Moshe Rabbeinu. So Yitro tells him you need to learn to delegate and you have to make a hierarchy of judges. And only the matters that are very difficult should come to you, like you'll be the Supreme Court.
בספר המשפטים.
רגע אחד. What's Mimachras, the day after? Says Rashi, the day after Yom Kippur. The day when Moshe came down with the second tablets. So it says here, by Yishma Yisro, he came in Sivan. Sivan, oh, Thomas, okay, so 4 or 5 months later, he sits to judge the people. So this Parsha is a blend of the month of Sivan with the month of Tishrei, which is in the 10th day of Tishrei, was Machras Yom Kippur. So it's very confusing. We jump from before Matan Torah to after Matan Torah without any indication other than the word Mimachras. So what we see from here, as this Parsha, for some reason, out of chronological sequence, this Parsha precedes the event of Maimon Har Sinai. In other words, it may have happened after, but for some reason it was put before. It must be to teach us something. So if it's going to go out of chronological sequence, what is this Parsha teaching us? Okay. So I think the Parsha is teaching us, I don't remember, about 15 things. So let's start at the beginning. Vayishma. These are keys to acquiring Torah. You want to acquire knowledge of Torah? There will be a number of keys which we will discern from the events of this Parsha. The first thing you need to know is you have to be a Shomea. You know what a Shomea is? Somebody who pays attention. Not just somebody who listens, but who listens and draws and inculcates from what he hears or what she hears to make a change in their behavior.
In Hebrew, does it exist the difference to listen, to pay attention?
Well, Hakshiv, Shmoa, yeah, it says. So Rashi tells us right here, Ma Shmua Shama Uba. What did he hear and then come? He acted on what he heard. So the first thing we need to know, if you want to study and be a student of Torah, A, you have to listen. You have to have some teacher, some Rabbi that will teach you Torah. And B, you have to inculcate or internalize what you are learning so that it makes a difference in how you behave.
Or to do deed,
Excuse me?
to do deeds, to act.
That's right. To listen and to act upon what you hear. You want to study Torah? It's not a subject. Yeah, nish. You know what that means? Oh, maybe yeah, maybe not. You have to act on it. It has to become a part of you. You have to internalize it. So that's the first lesson of acquiring Torah. The second thing here is another very strange thing in this parsha. It says, Vayikach Yisro Chosvim Moshe, and Yisro took, the father-in-law of Moses, took as Tzipporah, Ashes Moshe, Tzipporah, the wife of Moshe, Veshnei Baneha, and her 2 sons. Asher Shemo Echad Gershom, the name of one son was Gershom, and the second name was Eliezer. And Yisro comes with his daughter and his 2 grandchildren, who are Moses' children. Amazing thing here. Moshe Rabbeinu, it says, Vayovo Yisro, Vayomer, Vayetze Moshe Lakras Yisro. And Moses goes out to greet his father. What would we think he should have done?
What Moshe should have done?
Yeah.
Should meet his father.
He went to meet his father. What else should he have done?
His wife.
His wife. What else should he have done?
Oh, his children.
His children. No mention of going out to meet his wife. No mention of going out to meet his children. Okay, so maybe he did, and it's just not in the Torah. But the fact that he had children is being emphasized here, even though it doesn't tell us that he greeted them, but they were his children. What's this telling us? How do we know that we're supposed to learn Torah? How does a Jew know that there's a mitzvah for each one of us to study Torah. So, if you recall from the Kriya Shema, Yishinamtam levonecha, you should teach the Torah to your children. Says the Gemara, how do you teach Torah to your children if you don't know it yourself? Elamai, this tells us that each of us has to study and learn Torah so that we can teach it to our children. So the mitzvah of learning Torah is a derivative of the fact that we have to teach it to our children. So that's what the Torah is telling us here. The Torah is not telling us here how Moshe greeted or didn't greet his children. It's telling us here that Moshe Rabbeinu had children, and that is the vehicle for which we know that we have the root from which we know that we have to study Torah. So every father has a mitzvah to study Torah in order to give it over to his children, to pass it on. It should not die. It should be a continuity. There should be a continuity.
But I'm sorry, I'm not sure how you're deriving that from the pasuk there, that he's meeting his father-in-law, but not no mention of his children.
It's a question.
How do you extrapolate that from?
I'm going to tell you.
Mhm.
So the Torah is not busy or bothered with telling us how he greeted his children.
Right,
There's no question that he would greet his children.
right.
It's just that the Torah doesn't tell us that. So
Right.
that we're going to stop and say, why doesn't the Torah tell us that? And even though the Torah tells us that his children came, don't tell us his children came. Just disregard that issue. And Yitro came. What is it telling us his children came? Torah says it's telling us that his children came because that is the vehicle from which we learn, or part of what we learn is that the Torah is transmitted from parent to child. And his children are crucial to this statement because this parsha is going to teach us the tools upon which we will use to learn Torah. So the first tool was you have to listen and you have to act on it, internalize it and act on it. The second is you need to study Torah in order to be able to transmit it to your children. And that is not a superficial knowledge. You can't teach Torah unless you have a well-grounded, well-founded knowledge of Torah. You can't just get up and decide you're going to teach Torah without knowing it soundly, fundamentally, correctly. And that is the second tool that one must use in order to study Torah. Study it, learn it, not just to hear it and act on it, but to study it so that you can be a vehicle for its transmission. Okay.
Now, wouldn't it have been helpful if we knew what Moshe taught, how he turned it over?
No.
No?
Why not?
Because he's a great role model.
Yes, but what would be missing? How can we relate to this situation? First of all, there's a 3,500-year cultural gap. Second of all, there's chanoch lenar api darko. Every child has to be taught in the manner which is best suited for the child. You can't say, this is how you teach, and therefore you teach A, B, C, D, E, F, G, all the same way. Every child is unique. Every child, we need to tap into his strengths, be aware of his weaknesses, and be able to teach him in a manner which will be successful to transmit the Torah. There is no one-size-fits-all. Can't take from what Moshe Rabbeinu did and apply it to everybody in the rest of the history. He taught his children in a manner that was best suited for them. Maybe they weren't so intellectual. Maybe they had ADD, whatever those things are. So there's all kinds of issues that he may have had with his children. And you may not have the same issues. I may not have the same issues. And therefore, every child was taught in accordance with his or her strengths. Okay. Okay, then it tells us here, Vayini Maras, and it was the next day after Moshe Rabbeinu greets his father-in-law, and they sit down and they share a meal, and Moshe fills in Yitro about some other details of what happened, about how the Mitzrayim drowned in the sea, And it was this very same Mida Keneged Mida. They took the little boys and drowned them, and so they ended up drowning themselves. And Yisro was very happy that he heard that God came down providentially, in a sense, and took the children of Israel out by the hand and led them into the desert and saved them from the Mitzrayim, around the armies that were chasing them. Now it was the next day, and we already said the next day is the day after Yom Kippur, when Moshe Rabbeinu came down with the second tablets and began to teach the Torah to the assembly of Israel. Okay. And Moshe Rabbeinu taught it to them. And they ended up realizing they had all kinds of disputes, property rights, torts rights, contract rights, whatever rights they were having amongst themselves. And now that the Torah was being taught to them, they had issues that they wanted resolved by Moshe Rabbeinu as the judge of their disputes or their interactions. Moshe Rabbeinu sits down and Yisro criticizes him. What do we see from this? We see from this two things. Number one, we must accept critical criticism, constructive criticism. If there's a criticism that's leveled against us and it's constructive, means it's coming from a person who wants to fix what he or she perceives as wrong, what we're doing inefficiently, we have to be willing to accept this kind of constructive criticism. No ego can get in the way. We don't let ego get in the way. Moshe Rabbeinu, the greatest teacher in Israel, accepts constructive criticism from a Gentile. From Yisro? Yisro probably, well, Yisro was a Kohen Midjan, he was an official in Midjan, and he had an organizational skills, which he shared with Moshe Rabbeinu, and Moshe Rabbeinu accepts his criticism.
Because he also had the skills to see the larger picture.
Right, and that's what he could transmit it to Moshe Rabbeinu. You'll get tired, they'll get tired, you have an inefficient system. The question we have to ask ourselves is, didn't Moshe Rabbeinu realize this? Didn't Moshe Rabbeinu see after a couple of days they're all standing on line and everybody's getting tired and antsy, and then he's getting tired? Wouldn't they see something, wouldn't he see that this is not a way to do it? Why wouldn't he have resolved this issue and figured this all out for himself, for the betterment of the people, for the betterment of transmission of the Torah? So my Rabbi Yaakov Weinberg Zatzal asked this question. Thank you very much.
Amen.
Why did a Gentile have to present this to Moshe Rabbeinu? Why wasn't it obvious to him? And my Rabbi Yaakov Weinberg answered this question by saying, Yisro's advice came at a great cost. Everybody had the opportunity to present his or her case to Moshe Rabbeinu, to have in other words, a meeting with Moshe Rabbeinu, to seek his guidance, to seek his judgment, to seek the clarity that he would give them. This was a tremendous advantage to every single person. Everyone who had a dispute, everyone who had an issue, to bring their case to the great Moshe Rabbeinu, and in his presence, listen to how he would guide them and resolve it, face to face. Once you delegate and you set up a hierarchy, intermediate steps, you lose that personal contact with Moshe Rabbeinu. So Moshe Rabbeinu held initially personal contact outweighed inconvenience, outweighed being tired. Me meeting them is a great thing for me, and them meeting me is a great thing for them. And therefore Moshe Rabbeinu preferred that way, at least initially. But as the nation, we are a litigious nation. Jews are lawyers, Jews are judges, and Jews are plaintiffs and defendants. Jews have a lot of litigation. So there's a lot of issues, and it just became overwhelming. So Moshe Rabbeinu agreed that Yisro's preferred constructive criticism was accepted, and therefore he did it. So the thing we learn from him says, one, even as great as Moshe Rabbeinu, must accept constructive criticism and not let his ego get in the way.
I think we also learn that to respect our elders, and our elders have a certain wisdom that they can impart, and the younger generation can learn from.
Okay, that's for sure. We also learn that because nobody can. Moshe Rabbeinu was the source for the Torah for the Jewish people. You can't study anywhere else and get anything better than that. Anyway,
Can we say that Yitro was the generalist and Moshe was the particularist?
maybe you can say it that way. Okay, then what does Yisro tell Moshe? Search out from amongst the people, God-fearing people, men of valor, men of truth, men who dislike bribery, and make them into the higher court, the court system, the hierarchy of the court system. So what do we see from here? That Torah flows through people of integrity, people of honesty, people who are not arrogant, people who are not susceptible to bribes, people who are just truly, exemplary people. The Maharal carries this to a very extreme even, by saying that if you see somebody who is arrogant, do not ask him halachic questions. Because the Torah does not flow. Torah is like water. It flows to the low point. It flows to people who are humble, modest, not extravagant, not flamboyant, not arrogant, people who have a moral integrity and they live a simple life. That's the kind of people that you turn to for advice. Those are the kind of people you turn to for teaching you Torah. And that's another tool here that we learn from this story about how we should identify ourselves, attach ourselves to people who can teach us Torah. Obviously, they have to be knowledgeable, but also they have to live a simplistic lifestyle. They have to be honest, men of integrity and honesty. We also learn from this another cool thing. It says that Moshe Rabbeinu told these people that he appointed, the strata, men of 10, men of 100, men of 1,000. He set up a system of courts. That they have to take what is more difficult to a higher level, which means that they have to have an acknowledgement of their own shortcomings. In other words, if let's say for instance, now today, you might ask the question, are we allowed to yield terrorists in order to secure prisoners, the release of prisoners?
The question, are we allowed to?
Are we allowed to free terrorists in exchange for people who are in prison? Chatufin. What?
Yeah.
There's a very profound halachic question in this issue. The simple approach to the halakha is that pidyon shvuyim, redeeming prisoners, is one of the highest mitzvahs possible. However, you're not supposed to redeem them at a cost that is greater than their value. What does that mean? That means there has to be a weighing of the sides of this issue. For instance, if we're going to free Sinwar and he's going to lead an attack on our country, or if we free other terrorists who are committed to further acts of terrorism, we're exposing the population, all of Israel, to acts of terrorism, to acts of death. And therefore, maybe the price is too high. We are giving up too much in order to get back these people who unfortunately were captured. So there's a famous story of Rabbi Meir Rutenberg, who was captured, or was taken prisoner, not captured, taken and put into a dungeon by one of the counts who needed to raise money for his armies. And he set a high ransom on Rabbi Meir Rutenberg. He told the Jewish community, you want to free this great rabbi, you have to pay me an extreme amount of money. And the Jews were willing to deep into their pockets and redeem Rabbi Meir Rutenberg for this high sum. Rabbi Meir Rutenberg issued from his dungeon, I will not allow you to redeem me for this money. You pay it, I'm going to sit here anyway. Don't pay it. It's too high of a price. And if you pay that amount of money for me, this will start a whole chain reaction. They'll grab other scholars when they need money and they'll put them in jail. And then they'll raise the ransom monies. I will not be redeemed. And he died in the dungeon years later. He would not allow them to redeem him because you cannot pay more than I'm worth in order to get my release. How do you set a value? Well, I don't know, a couple $1,000 because, I can work. That would be something. But to set a high, tremendous price on my head, no way, you cannot redeem me. That is accepted halacha. So this question of can we release murderers in exchange for prisoners is a very profound issue. I won't sit in such, I would not ever dare make a judgment call in this case. I would defer this to the great scholars and the great judges. That's what Moshe Rabbeinu was telling them here. Hadover hakoton yishbatuhe. Easy questions, lower level questions, not something that stands at the rumo shalom, at the very peak of halacha. The lower courts can decide. But if it's going to be a matter of grave consequence, then you come to me. So what does this tell us? Judges have to have humility. They can't just say, well, I'm the judge, I can do what I want, I'll make this decision. They have to accept the realization that not every case will they be able to be the right judge because they may not be able to weigh the policy issues, the halachic issues, the humanitarian issues. There's all kinds of issues involved, and therefore those are the kind of issues you bring to the higher court, to the meet, ultimately to Moshe Rabbeinu. That's another key in judging in Israel and studying Torah and learning Torah and applying halacha. There has to be a sense of humility. There has to be a sense of I do not know everything, and I need to defer to those who know more than me if I reach a question that seems to be above my pay scale.
There are two words. One, Anshe Chayil.
Somne Batza, Anshe Yemes, Anshe Chayil, Yirei Elokim, Yorei Shemai. You have to be men of valor, of stature of some sort, God-fearing, men of integrity, honesty, and those who despise bribery.
And what about being weak?
That's Anshe Chayil. Men who will stand up for what's right.
Oh.
So do you know anything on how the Shalit deal evolved?
I don't know. I know there was a tshuva asked Rabbi Vaji Yosef about that. I see that people cite it, but they don't, they just tell you to go look it up. I never looked it up. But there is, at least from Rabbi Vaji Yosef, that tshuva.
About Gilad Shalit?
Mm-hmm.
What was his answer?
I don't know. I said, they tell you to go look at it. Whatever it was, they did it. They surrendered 1,000, among them Sinwar.
Well, I didn't say the truth anyhow.
Aryeh not a scholar in my mind. Okay.
He was the counselor of Rabbi Yosef.
Well, okay, fine. And Holman was the counselor of Bahashai.
Yeah.
Okay. Vayishma Moshe l'kol chosno. And Moshe accepted this. He accepted constructive criticism. Okay. And he selected these people. Shaftu asal b'choles. And that's another thing that we learned from Moshe Rabbeinu, to accept constructive criticism, to act on constructive criticism, to effectuate the advice of somebody else. And that gets back to the original question. We accept the truth even from a Gentile. We are not, I wouldn't say racist, but we're not the kind of people that said, you know, this is a good idea, but it didn't come from a Jewish source. This is not a Jewish man. He's not a Torah scholar. We don't accept advice on how to judge, how to set up a based-in system, a court system, from somebody who's not Jewish. Teretz is the parsha of Matan Torah. These lessons that we learn from this interchange, from the meeting of Yitro and Moshe, all comes from a Gentile. And that's another point that we have to realize is true.
It's
interesting.
Commentaries, Chazal say that he converted?
Yeah, ultimately he converts.
Yeah.
The parsha ends off, Vayishach Moshe es chosno, vayilech lo al arza. Moshe sends his father-in-law back to Midian, where he came from, to his land.
That's also questionable, right?
Well, no. But he appears again in Bamidbar. This is Shemos.
Oh.
In Bamidbar, Yisro appears.
Oh.
And Moshe Rabbeinu then tells him, don't go back to your land.
Well.
Stay with us, and you will be for us like a scout. You know the desert. You've traveled this route before. You'll be able to give us advice in terms of encampment, etc., which is really not true, because al pi Hashem nosau, al pi Hashem chanu. When the column of fire and smoke or cloud would rest, that's where they camped. And when the Onon would go up, that's when they traveled. So they didn't need anybody to tell them where to camp and how to camp and what to do. But Moshe Rabbeinu was trying to convince his father-in-law to stay, so he's trying to say, we need you. Don't leave us, don't go back home. And that time, Moshe Rabbeinu was successful and Yisro stayed.
You think he stayed the whole journey?
Well, we'll see.
Mm-hmm.
When we study
Did we never hear from him again?
we'll hear from them again.
He went back to his business.
We'll hear from him again. But it's in Yitro. We're only in Shemos. We'll talk
Or
about
he mentioned with a different name, I think.
Kov of Kosa.
He went back.
He has a few names.
Yeah. It says.
Excuse me?
He went back to his business.
What was his business?
Whatever it was.
Oh, okay. Probably sold diamonds. So anyway, now we can understand why this parsha, which is a blend of different chronological times, was put together right before Matan Torah, right before the Ten Commandments, because we learn keys, tools, methodologies, lessons on how to learn and acquire Torah knowledge and how to spread Torah knowledge. And therefore, it had to precede Maimon Har Sinai when the Torah was given to Israel. Okay, so that's the Parsha of Yisro.
Mm-hmm.
Now, in Yisro, we also have the Aseret HaDibros. Now, you know, I may have mentioned this before, the nomenclature 10 Commandments is a big mistake. There are 14 commandments in the 10 Commandments. The Torah doesn't call it Aseret HaMitzvos, the 10 Commandments. The Torah calls it Aseret HaDvarim, the 10 statements. What we call the 10 Commandments is broken down into 10 statements, 10 periods, 10 sentences, and then there are 10 statements, and it's called the Aseret HaDvarim, the 10 statements.
הדברים או הדיברות?
סליחה?
הדברים או הדיברות?
Either way, Aseret HaDvarim, Aseret HaDibrot. The 10 things or the 10 statements? How do we know where the 10 statements are? So there's cantillation. Are you familiar with that? The trop.
Mhm.
You know what musical.
Pashta, Mona,
Yeah, there's a way of reading the Torah like the Baal Korah gets up. He doesn't read it in a monotone. There's a Revi, there's a Kadam, Ve'alma. There's all kinds of musical incantations, cantillations that lead you on how to read the Torah. And there's one that's called Sof Pasuk, the end of the sentence. The cantillations in the Torah were not midoraisa. It wasn't not halacha Moshe Sinai. In other words, when Moshe came down with the Torah, he came down, you could read it in a monotone. The only thing that Moshe Rabbeinu taught us were the sentences. The sentences, where they begin and where they end, that is from Moshe, halacha Moshe Sinai. That was what Moshe Rabbeinu taught us.
which is so pasuk.
Sof Pasuk is halacha Moshe Sinai. But the rest of the notes, the musical notes, were made up at different times. And the reason for them is that people should not fall asleep in the middle of Kriyas HaTorah if it was just read in a monotone.
Yeah.
Well, Rabbi, just I disagree.
What?
I fully disagree.
Okay. What do you say?
The cantillation gives meaning.
That's secondary. It was been done in order to, it does
Okay,
give meaning.
Rabbi.
It does give meaning
We
sometimes.
had a quarrel, you and me, about Akedat Yitzchak, and you took it to the cantillation.
I don't remember what you said. Okay, whatever. There are a number of places where the conciliation helps you understand the context and what's going on. But that's only because the rabbis knew what they were doing when they put the conciliation in there.
Or also when we say, Miata, Anochi,
No, me, no. Me's that the name and you by Yomer,
Ani,
me,
Esav Bechol Chai.
Ani, Esa Bechorel.
And this is
But
only
that's
because,
not what the trouble.
and this is only because of cantillation.
No. That doesn't make any difference over there.
Okay.
Let's go back and look at it. Talking about Yaakov's giving a blessing.
Yes.
Anochi Esa B'chorecha Pashta. It's not that the conciliation connects it. Opposite of that, what you would say. Anochi Esa B'chorecha, it goes together.
Because of the cantillation.
No. The ones who want to explain this, they want to say, Anochi I am, Esav is your firstborn. That's a break. It should say, Anochi Kama, Esav B'chorecha. It doesn't. It says, Anochi Esav B'chorecha in one phrase.
It says because of the cantillation. Otherwise, you could say, Anochi, Esav Bechol.
Okay, but those people who want to give it, say Yaakov didn't lie, because when he said Anochi, he put a comma after Anochi.
Yes.
There is no comma.
But there is not even a continuation, because the continuation it is only because of the cantillation.
That's right, but that's what the
Oh,
thing.
we saw the
The
cantillation
Chazal that put this cantillation this way
because
told you that he lied. They're telling you that Yaakov did not tell the truth.
yes, should be Parit Torah.
All right, fine. Okay. So back to the 10 statements. If you take a look, there's, let's see, where's that? After Shemot, or is it after the end of the Parashat? No, it's at the end. There are two ways to read the 10 Commandments. Meaning how to break up the structure. Aseres HaDibrot of Parshas Yitro, B'tam Elyon, using the Tam Elyon. That's one way of one system of conciliation. That system breaks down the entire Aseres HaDiborim into 10 separate statements. So, for instance, Anochi Hashem Elokecha, I am the God, I'm the Lord your God who took you out of the land of Egypt from the house of slavery. You shall not have any gods before me. Don't make any images, no pictures of anything from the heavens and or the earth.
Can you tell me? Where there is a stop pasuk, how, I don't remember the.
So if you look here, Anochi Hashem Elokecha, dim sof pasuk.
How do we know it's supposed to be? The two points is not the sof pasuk.
Yes, it is. That's a sof pasuk. That's a period.
Yes, but here, but in
This is a sof pasuk. This is the straight way of reading it.
okay.
Tam Elyon, there's no sof pasuk until we get up to the second.
Okay.
Lo sisas Hashem Elokecha l'ashah. The whole first 7 or 8 lines in one sentence, one big long run-on sentence, we would say, because the Tam Elyon is going to make it into 10 statements. So the first statement is a proclamation that God is when God took us out of Egypt, and we can't make any graven images, and we have to, whether it be from an image from heaven or an image from the earth or an image from the waters, God is very, say, jealous over his children, and they have to observe his unity and his significance, and he will keep his promises to be beneficent to those who follow in his Torah. All one long sentence. Do not take the name of your Lord for naught, for God will not excuse anybody or forgive anybody who takes his name for naught. That's the second statement of Aseres HaDiborim. Shabbos is the third statement, also a very big, long run-on sentence. The fourth statement is honor your father and your mother. I'm sorry, Shabbos is well, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay? Lo tirtzach, do not commit murder. Lo tinaf, do not commit adultery. Lo tignov, do not steal. Lo sana b'reach la'ed shoker. Don't give false witness against your friend. And then don't covet. So this Tam Elyon breaks the 10 commandments down into 10 statements. And the normal way of reading it is many more sentences. No run-on sentences. There's sof pasuk all the way along the way. For some reason in the United States, and I guess this comes from Europe, the tradition was to read the 10 commandments with Tam Elyon, so that you would know that there are 10 statements in the Aseres HaDiborim. In Israel, for some reason, the Gra, the Vilna Gaon says, don't do it. And they read here, in all the shuls that follow the Minhag HaGra, they read it sentence by sentence, and they don't break it down into 10 statements. I never understood why not, but that's what they do.
And Vilna Gaon didn't give a reason.
I'm sure he did, but I don't know it. Now, what's amazing, as the Aseres HaDiborim were given in a most thunderous, awesome manner, the voice of God thundering from heaven, the mountain engulfed in flames, with smoke and heavy fog swirling around. Moshe Rabbeinu goes up to get the Aseres, the tablets. And it says, all b'chol ha'om, ro'im es ha'kolos, ves ha'lapidin, ves kol ha'shofar. There's a sounding of a shofar blasting. And normally a shofar, as it goes on, gets weaker and fainter. The shofar at Har Sinai, which was from heaven, blasted and grew stronger and stronger. And the people saw, all right, By the way, it says they saw the sounds. So there's a cute word from, I think it's from Rav Kook, or maybe it's from Rabbi Chalab. But it says, how do you see sound? It should say, Shamu es hakolos, not roim es hakolos. They heard the sound, not they saw the sound. So he says as follows. We all have five senses. And we form an impression of reality based on a combination of our senses. So, for instance, there could be a magician whose hand moves quicker than the eye, and he can fool us because he can go faster than the eye, or he distracts us, and therefore he can perform his so-called magic. Sometimes you hear something, you turn, and there's nobody there. Sometimes you see something, and there's no sound. The experience at Har Sinai was so overwhelming and awesome that there was no conflict between any of the senses. All five of our senses smelt, heard, saw the exact same thing. And that's why it says they saw the sound. No, there was no differentiation between seeing and hearing. Okay. But now, after the Ten Commandments and the set aside Torah, I keep saying it. Okay, Vayomer Hashem el Moshe. This is the very tail end of Parashat Yitro. God says to Moshe, "So shall you so shall you say to the children of Israel. You saw how I spoke to you from heaven. Do not make any graven images, gods of silver, gods of gold. Don't make them for them. A earthen altar shall you make. Do not use, as in mizbach avonim tasali, if you make for me a mizbeach, an altar, don't use hewn stone. Don't use stone that was chiseled or shaped or formed by metal, because metal is the symbolism of a sword, of a weapon. And don't walk up on steps to my mizbeach, have a incline. No steps, walk up an incline. And that's what they did, they made an incline. Now what is this doing at the end of the Ten Commandments? First of all, don't make graven images, don't make gods of gold and silver. That's right in the Ten Commandments. What is this repeat for? Why is there a repeat here? We just heard, don't make any graven images of pictures of anything from the heavens or from the earth or from the water. Don't make any images for me. Don't make any idols. Don't make any icons. And now, after this is concluded, Hashem says again, don't make golden and silver gods. Why does he repeat it? And what's the connection to the earthen altar? And what is this about steps?
Yes, funny.
The next parsha is Ve'ela HaMishpateh, and these are the laws. Rashi tells us, why does it start with a vav, Ve'ela, and these are, and connects. It's a connector, in conjunction. It's connecting the laws of Mishpatim to the giving of the Torah at Har Sinai. Ma'elu miSinai afel. Just like the 10 Parashat Devarim were uttered at Har Sinai, so too all of these laws were given to Moshe in the 40 days that he was on the top of the mountain. So to connect them. Well, if that's the point, why interrupt with a repeat here? And why interrupt with talking about an earthen altar? And don't go up to my mizbeach with steps. Why shouldn't you go up with steps? Because when you go up with steps, you bare your feet or you bare your legs, because as you go up, it bears your legs. So walk up without baring your legs. So I think that the reason these laws are put here is God is anticipating the sin of the golden calf. He knows, of course, what the future is going to be. He knows that very shortly after this, the children of Israel are going to make a golden calf. When Moshe Rabbeinu delays in coming down according to their calculation, they think he's gone. They think that he reached such a high plateau in heaven that he was consumed. His physical body was consumed and he no longer existed in the realm of the physical world. And therefore they were left leaderless. And therefore they made themselves a golden calf, which we'll talk about later. Hashem knows what's going to happen. So as soon as the 10 Devarim were finished, he reiterates, don't make for me a golden god. Elohei Zahav, lo sasu lachem. Why did they make a golden calf?
Right.
Because they thought Moshe Rabbeinu was missing. And they needed an intermediary to breach the awesome gap between this physical world and the spiritual world of heaven. Moshe Rabbeinu was their interface. He was the connector that could tie the godly to the human and the human to the godly. Moshe Rabbeinu's missing. There's a tremendous chasm, a gap, which we need to fill. And therefore they chose a golden calf. We'll talk about why they chose the golden calf as opposed to anything else.
The Merkavah, so.
Okay, whatever. But so Hashem tells them, you are missing my presence. You're not missing my presence. Make an earthen altar, and you will bring a korban on it. And wherever you will do that, Ovo elecha o berachticha, I will transcend from heaven and I will bless you. That will be your connection to me. Don't think that you can't breach this awesome gap between the spiritual heights of heaven and the mundane of this earth. If you will call out to me over an altar with a korban, I will be there for you and I will bless you and you will be, my presence will be felt in a manifest way. So therefore, he's telling them not to make a golden calf. And what happens when they made the golden calf? Moshe Rabbeinu comes down from the mountain, he sees what's going on and he breaks the tablets. It says he comes down and he sees the Jewish people mitzachek. Mitzachek, they're like engaged in foolery. Says the Gemara, what is this that they were engaged in? They were engaged in licentious behavior. Avodah Zarah goes together with licentious behavior. So what happens was, not only did they make a graven image and begin to dance around it and sort of worship it, but they also devolved and degraded themselves into licentious behavior. So the third thing is here, don't walk up and reveal your legs. Maintain your tznius. This was the third thing that Hashem was telling them in anticipation of their failure with the golden calf and the licentious behavior that flowed from it. A, don't make gods of gold. B, if you're missing my presence, make an altar, make a sacrifice, pray to me and I will be there. And the third thing is maintain modesty and don't devolve into licentious behavior. And that's the end of Parashat Yitro. And that's why this is here, right after the Aseret Devarim. Thank you for listening.